Okay, so, hi, hello. Welcome to something kind of different on the channel. This is my first ever compilation video. So this will be volume 1 of my Creepypasta compilation. I don't know exactly what I'm going to name it by the time this is posted, but I just wanted to create this because I feel like some creepypastas do deserve the spotlight, and this video consists of creepypastas that didn't necessarily get that spotlight that I feel like they will deserve. That doesn't mean if they will in this long format video, but I do think it'll probably just be a better format where people can have this on in the background and do other stuff. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and thank you for clicking on it. Enjoy! This is findagrave.com. One day, I was screwing around at school. I was on our school's homepage procrastinating on some random PowerPoint I should have been finishing. On the side of our school's homepage, it shows a link for our classes that we use when we go on the computers. One of the websites was called www.findagrave.com. I thought about it for a second, then clicked on it, but before I did, I felt uneasy, like, why is this here? It wasn't like we're doing some ancestry project or anything. It made me feel odd. It made me think of all those stories of things that happen on the internet. But I'm just paranoid, right? The website was rather simple. The owner obviously did not care whatsoever about how they're putting things together. It was mostly a white page, laid out evenly with many links. To the average person, it seemed like a site you come across if you mistype a URL in. One of the many visible links was search 87 million graves records. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was not right. I nudged my friend Olivia to look at the site with me, and she laughed a bit and logged onto it as well. We started to type in the names of dead people we knew, and their biographies and photos actually showed up. Another odd thing was that someone had gone around and taken photos of the graves. For nearly every deceased family member I searched, a picture of their headstone had popped up. The period came to an end, and I went on with the rest of the school day, not thinking about it. That night, I got home and told my mother about the whole thing. She just laughed and said how weird it was. I still didn't feel quite right about it. Who in the right mind would go around and take photos of random people's graves? I asked my mother who the person who added the photos to my great-grandmother's tombstone was, and she said that she had no idea. In my best interest, I decided to prod around the website a bit more. I started typing in names of famous dead people such as Kurt Cobain, and there was a feature on the site where you can leave virtual flowers on the grave, which was kind of thoughtful in my mind, but the entire concept of it was still unsettling to me. It was well into the night, and all my internet friends had gone to sleep, but I had drank an entire liter of Coke, so I was awake and curious. Going through the site, I started to randomly type in names of alive celebrities to see if there was anyone with the same name that was dead. Then I started to type in people's names of who I knew, and then I typed in myself. That was a bad mistake. I typed in my name, and a grin spreading across my face when I saw other people. I don't know why I was so pleased by this, but I was. I clicked on all 4 of the results, looking at where they were from and the years that they died. The more I looked at these 2 contributions, the more scared I grew. I should just shut the laptop as soon as I realized that all the dead people with the same name as myself were in states surrounding my own. The birth dates and death dates are slowly getting closer to mine. Clicking on the back button, it said showing 4 out of 5 results. Had I missed one? I could have sworn that I went through them all. I scrolled down further to see the newest entry, and I clicked on it. It said my birth year and the date of the next day. The photo included was me with someone standing behind me at 11:59, just before midnight. This creepypasta is called White with Red. A man went to a hotel and walked up to the front desk to check in. The woman at the desk gave him his key and told him that on the way to his room, there was a door with no number that was locked, and no one was allowed in there. She explained that it was a storeroom, and that it was out of bounds. She reminded him of this several times before allowing him upstairs. The man followed the instructions of the woman, going straight to the bed in his room. However, her insistence had piqued his curiosity, so the next night, he walked down the hall to the door and tried the handle. Sure enough, it was locked. He bent down and looked through the wide keyhole. Cold air passed through it, chilling his eye. What he saw was not a storeroom but a hotel bedroom, like his. In the corner was a woman whose skin was incredibly pale. She was leaning her head against the wall, facing away from the door. The man stared in confusion for a while. Was this a celebrity? The owner's daughter? He almost knocked on the door to ask himself, but decided not to. As he was still looking, the woman turned sharply. He jumped back from the keyhole, hoping she would not notice that he had been spying on her. He crept away from the door and walked back to his room. The next day, he returned to the door and looked through the wide keyhole. This time, all he saw was redness.
He couldn't make anything out besides a distinct, unmoving red color. Perhaps the inhabitants of the room knew he had been spying on them the night before, and had blocked the keyhole with something red. He felt embarrassed that he had made the woman so uncomfortable, and hoped she had not made a complaint to the woman at the front desk. At this point, he decided to consult her for more information. She sighed and asked, "Did you look through the keyhole?" The man told her that he had. She said, "Well, I might as well tell you the story of what happened in that room. A long time ago, a man murdered his wife in there, and we find that even now, whoever stays within gets very uncomfortable. But this woman is not ordinary. She is white all over except for her eyes, which are red." This creepypasta is called The Disappearance of Ashley, Kansas. Sometime during the night of August 16th, 1952, the small town of Ashley, Kansas ceased to exist. At 3:28 a.m. on August 17th, 1952, a magnitude 7.9 earthquake was measured by the United States Geological Survey. The earthquake itself was felt throughout the state and most of the Midwest. The epicenter was determined to be directly under Ashley, Kansas. When state law enforcement arrived at what should have been the outskirts of the farming community, they found a smoldering, burning fissure in the earth measuring 1,000 yards in length and approximately 500 yards in width. The depth of the fissure was never determined. After 12 days, the statewide and local search for the missing 679 residents of Ashley, Kansas was called off by the Kansas state government at 9:15 p.m. on the night of August 29th, 1952. All 679 residents were assumed to be dead. At 2:27 a.m. on August 30th, 1952, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake was measured by the United States Geological Survey. The epicenter was situated under what used to be the location of Ashley, Kansas. When law enforcement investigated at 5:32 a.m., they reported that the fissure in the earth had closed. In the 8 days leading up to the disappearance of the town and its 679 residents, bizarre and unexplainable events were reported by dozens of residents in Ashley, Kansas, and law enforcement from the surrounding area. On the evening of August 8, 1952, at 7:13 p.m., a resident by the name of Gabriel Jonathan reported a strange sight in the sky above Ashley. The town itself, having no official branch of law enforcement, called into the police station of the neighboring town of Hayes. Gabriel reported what appeared to be a small black opening in the sky. Within the next 15 minutes, the Hayes police station became overwhelmed with dozens of phone calls, all reporting the same phenomenon. The phenomenon was never reported by any neighboring communities. A decision was made to send a trooper to Ashley to investigate the matter the following morning. At 7:54 a.m. on the morning of August 9, 1952, Hayes police officer Alan Mace radioed the Hayes police station. He reported that, despite following the one-way road leading into Ashley, he had become lost. According to his report, the road continued along its normal path, but somehow ended up back in Hayes. Officer Mace went on to add that the road never curved, or bent in any direction. At 9:15 a.m., 7 of the town's 10 police cars were sent to investigate the situation, and all the members of the team came to the same conclusion. The only road leading into Ashley stopped leading into Ashley, but instead led back to Hayes. Phone calls continued to pour into the Hayes police station, all reporting the black opening in the sky continued to grow in size. All callers were advised to remain inside and not to travel unless absolutely necessary. At 8:17 p.m., Mrs. Elaine Cantor reported her neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Milton, and their 2 children, Jeffrey and Brooke, missing. According to Miss Cantor's phone call, the Miltons attempted to leave town in their family car earlier in the evening. They never returned. Law enforcement officials from Hayes never reported the car or individuals coming up the one-way road. At 7:38 a.m. on the morning of August 10, 1952, phone calls from Ashley into the Hayes police station reported that the town was in total darkness. The sun had never risen. At 10:15 a.m., at the request of the Hayes law enforcement, a helicopter from Topeka, Kansas, flew over the region in which Ashley, Kansas stood. The town was never observed from air. At 12:43 p.m. on the afternoon of August 11, 1952, Miss Phoebe Dawilowski called into the Hayes police station. She reported that her daughter Erica had begun to have conversations with her father, who died 3 years prior in a drunk driving accident. To add to her concern, Miss Dawilowski reported that Erica was attempting to go outside into the dark to join them, Over the course of the next 12 hours, a reported 329 phone calls were placed into the Hayes police station, all describing similar phenomenon with the children of the town. The following morning of August 12, 1952, the situation became dire. During the middle of the night, all 217 children in the town of Ashley, Kansas disappeared. A reported 421 phone calls were placed into the Hayes Police Department. Unable to be of any useful assistance, Hayes law enforcement instructed all callers to remain inside and to avoid any and all attempts at finding the missing children. At 5:19 p.m. on the evening of August 13, 1952, Ashley elderly man Scott Luntz reported a growing, distant fire to the south. According to his description, the fire seemed to turn the distant black into bright red and orange that seemed to extend high into the sky. Throughout the rest of the day, calls continued in stating that the fire, in addition to moving north, now seemed to come out of the black sky. No fire was ever witnessed by any of the neighboring communities or law enforcement officials. The reports continued until 12:09 a.m. on the morning of August 14, 1952. The last phone call placed by a Mr. Benjamin Endicott reported that the fire in the sky had grown so intense that it began to appear as daytime over the town. The phone call ended abruptly. From the phone call placed by Benjamin Sherman Endicott. Benjamin. Just hold on. Wait. Benjamin continued. Yeah, I see something. It's to the south, it looks like. End of the phone call. The next phone call wouldn't be placed until the following evening. The following is the entire transcript of the final phone call to be received by the Hayes Police Department out of the town of Ashley, Kansas. It was placed at 9:46 p.m. on the evening of August 15, 1952. The officer on duty is Officer Peter Welsh. The caller has been identified as Miss April Foster. Begin phone call. Officer Welsh. Hayes Police Department. There's muffled static. Hello? Miss Foster. Yes, hello? Ma'am, who am I speaking with? My name is April Foster. Please, sir, please help me. What is happening, ma'am? Last night they came back. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to. Last night they came back. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down and speak clearly. What happened? Who came back? She's sobbing. Everyone. Everyone? They all came in the fire. What do you mean, everyone? My son. I saw my son last night. He was walking down the street. He was burned. Jesus Christ, he was burned. Ma'am, he died last year. I raised him since he was a baby. It was just me and him. I told him to watch for cars when he rode his bike, but he never listened. Ma'am, what you're saying isn't making any sense. You said everyone came back. Are you fucking listening to me? Everyone came back. Everyone who died or went missing. They're back, and they're looking for us. She continues to cry. He said, Mommy, I'm okay now. See, I can walk again. Where are you, Mommy? I want to see you. She sobs. Ma'am, where are you now? Are you safe? I'm hiding, just like everyone else. We saw them coming through the fields, and some people opened their doors for them. God, the screaming. She pauses. I don't know what happened to them, but their house caught fire and they caved in. I have my curtains drawn. I'm hiding in a closet right now. And silence. Ma'am, is everything alright? Are you okay? Miss Foster's quiet. Ma'am? Then, on Miss Foster's side of the phone, she can hear glass shattering. Oh my God. Ma'am? Something just came in. You can hear muffled cries. Ma'am, stay as quiet as you can. Don't make a sound. You can hear a faint, muffled, Mommy. Mommy. She is currently crying. He came inside. Stay absolutely still. Don't leave. There's sound of muffled footsteps. Muffled. Mommy. Mommy. Where are you hiding? Stay quiet. Sounds of heavy footsteps, laughter, and muffled. I found you, Mommy. Indiscernible screaming and noise. Ma'am. That was the end of the phone call. The following morning at 6:55 a.m., the law enforcement officials of the Hayes Police Department arrived at the location of Ashby, Kansas. A smoldering, burning fissure in the earth was all that remained. This creepypasta is called The Girl in the Photograph. One school day, a boy named Tom was sitting at his desk by the window, doing math. It was 6 more minutes until school ended. As he was doing his homework, something caught his eye. Looking at the grass outside, he thought he saw a picture. When the school was over, he ran outside fast, so that no one else could grab it. He picked it up and smiled. It was an image of the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. She had a dress with tights on and red shoes, and her hand was formed into a peace sign. She was so beautiful that he wanted to meet her, so he ran all over the school asking everyone if they knew her or had ever seen her before, but everyone he asked said no. He was devastated. When he got home, he asked his older sister if she knew the girl, but unfortunately she also said no. At this point, it was very late, so he walked upstairs, placed the picture on his bedside table, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, Tom was awakened by a tap on his window, like from a fingernail. It scared him. After the tapping, he heard a giggle. He saw a shadow outside, so he got out of bed. He walked towards it and opened the window and listened for the giggling. By the time he reached the glass, it was gone. The next day, he asked his neighbors if they knew the girl. Nobody did. When his mother came home, he even asked her if she knew her. She said no. Saddened, he went to his room, placed the picture on his desk, and fell asleep. Once again, he was awakened by a tapping. Taking the picture, he followed the giggling outside. He walked across the road when suddenly, he was hit by a car. He was dead on impact. The picture still in his hand. The driver got out of the car and tried to help the boy, but it was too late. He could only pick up and view the picture he was holding. He saw a cute girl holding up 3 fingers. This creepypasta is called Gateway of the Mind. In 1983, a team of deeply pious scientists conducted a radical experiment in an undisclosed facility. The scientists had theorized that a human without access to any senses or ways to perceive stimuli will be able to perceive the presence of God. They believed that the 5 senses clouded our awareness of eternity, and without them, a human could actually establish contact with God by thought. An elderly man who claimed to have nothing left to live for was the only test subject to volunteer. To purge him of all his senses, the scientists performed a complex operation in which every sensory nerve connection to the brain was surgically severed. Although the test subject retained full muscular function, he could not see, hear, taste, smell, or feel. With no possible way to communicate with or even sense the outside world, he was alone with his thoughts. Scientists monitored him as he spoke about his state of mind in jumbled, slurred sentences that he couldn't even hear. After 4 days, the man claimed to be hearing hushed, unintelligible voices in his head. Assuming it was onset psychosis, the scientists paid little attention to his concerns. 2 days later, the man cried that he could hear his dead wife speaking with him, and even more. He could communicate back. The scientists were intrigued but not convinced until the subject started naming their dead relative. He repeated personal information to them that only their dead spouses and parents would have known. At this point, a sizable portion of scientists left the study. After a week of conversing with his deceased through his thoughts, the subject became distressed, saying that the voices were overwhelming. Apparently, in every waking moment, his consciousness was being bombarded by hundreds of voices that refused to leave him alone. He frequently threw himself against the wall, trying to elicit a pain response, and begged the scientists for sedatives so he could escape the voices by sleeping. This tactic worked for 3 days until he started having severe night terrors. He repeatedly said that he could see and hear the deceased in his dreams. Only a day later, the subject began to scream and claw at his non-functional eyes, hoping to sense something in the physical world. Now hysterical, he said that the voices of the dead were deafening and hostile, speaking of hell and the end of the world. At one point, he yelled, "No heaven, no forgiveness," for 5 hours straight. He continued to beg to be killed, but the scientists were convinced that he was close to establishing a contact with God. After another day, the subject could no longer form coherent sentences. Seemingly mad, he started to bite off chunks of flesh from his arm. The scientists rushed into his test chamber and restrained him to a table so he could not end himself. After a few hours of being tied down, the subject halted his struggling and screaming. He stared blankly at the ceiling as teardrops silently streaked across his face. For 2 weeks, he had to be manually rehydrated due to constant crying. Eventually, he turned his head and, despite his blindness, made focused eye contact with a scientist for the first time in the study. he whispered. I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us. And his vital signs stopped. There was no apparent cause of death. This creepypasta is called Bob. Andrew woke up with a start. He knew what had happened, and his heart sank. The sound of shattering downstairs did the same to his nerves. It had come. After weeks of watching and stalking him, the creature had finally decided to break in. The patio doors, made completely of glass, provided it with the perfect entrance. Andrew lay there in bed, in the blackness, illuminated by the small amount of light the moon provided through the space between the curtains. He listened for the creature to see if it was inside, secretly praying that everything would be silent. The terrifying cracking of glass under his feet confirmed his worst fear. It had finally made its way into his home. With this crushing realization, Andrew, now shaking, grabbed his titanium baseball bat and crept downstairs, deeper into the darkness. He was determined to confront this thing once and for all, secretly hoping, though, that it would run away when it saw him, as it normally did. Andrew stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening again. At first, all he heard was the cracking of glass under the creature's feet. Then, for the first time, Andrew heard it, breathing heavily, as if his throat was blocked by phlegm. The hideous monster snarled and clicked, gradually getting closer to Andrew. Now, in the kitchen, the creature was finally off of the glass. It walked almost silently now, strangely more agile than it looked, especially considering how clumsily it ran away. Andrew realized what he needed to do. He grasped his weapon tighter and froze, unable to move. He knew he needed to attack it, but he just couldn't. Its teeth, its eyes, its skin. They were human, but not quite. It was in the living room now, edging closer by the second. Yet Andrew was still too terrified to move. Even if it didn't have arms, this creature was the embodiment of terror for Andrew. Andrew stood at the bottom of the stairs, shaking. He heard the creature getting ever closer. The sickening sound of his distorted breathing amplified by the almost pitch-black darkness. It was nearly at him now. He had one chance to kill it, and he wasn't going to waste it. The creature stepped into the doorway to the stairs. Andrew was hidden just to the left. He swung at full force, hitting the thing in the chest with the bat. It staggered back, then stopped and looked at Andrew, its tiny, wild eyes staring into his soul. Andrew felt a deep fear unlike anything he had ever experienced. The creature then let out a gurgle hiss, baring all of his sickening, deformed teeth in the process. It kicked Andrew in the gut, winding him. He fell down to the floor in pain, unable to breathe, then rolled onto his back and scuffed up against the wall just behind him. The creature watched him until he reached the wall, at which point it walked towards him and looked down at him if it were judging him. Lying there, helpless, it then stomped on his shin, snapping the bone. Tears began to stream from Andrew's eyes. The pain is so intense. He thought he was going to vomit. Andrew, now incapacitated, had nowhere to go and no way to fight. The creature placed his foot on his stomach, pressing down, ripping into his flesh with his long, dirty toenails. With the creature's foot now completely inside his stomach, Andrew started to cough up blood. Tears streamed down his face, and he passed out from the pain, and then passed away. The creature loomed over what was now his bloody corpse. It descended its face towards Andrew's, then tore away at a bloody piece of flesh from his chin, dislocating one side of his jaw in the process. The creature continued to tear and eviscerate Andrew's corpse until everything it could stomach had been devoured. It then left, calmly, silently, with a pure and deep hatred in his heart. It departed the same way it came in, through the broken patio doors.
This creepypasta is called Another Perspective on Bob. Hey guys, normally creepy shit doesn't happen to me. Despite living in weird New Jersey, I guess I can't really say that anymore, considering I had the worst fucking week of my life. In a way, I brought all of this upon myself, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Since I lurked /x/ for so long, it's only fair I tell you guys what happened to me. So, a week ago, it was my birthday. I just turned 18 and decided I wanted to fuck around and look for ghosts. I would have hung out with friends, but I wasn't in the mood to be a third wheel. If only I just sucked it up and dealt with it. Instead, I shoved my phone and a flashlight into my hoodie pockets and snuck out the back door. I didn't really expect to find much, or I would have brought a proper weapon with me too. I guess I'm sort of dumb to think about that in retrospect. I remember glancing at the clock, and it was around 11 or 12 at night when I left. It was pretty fucking dark because there was a new moon. I figured if I was going to see anything cool, it was now. Now, I was just walking around in the forest herpa-derping. There's actually a pretty sketchy cemetery about a 10-minute walk away from my house, and it's been around for the past couple of 100 years. It's also a spot that practices a green burial, where they put the body into a biodegradable casket and send it on its way into the dirt. Well, my uncle owns a plot of land the cemetery is built upon, and being the cheap bastard he is, most bodies buried there end up thrown in there by themselves. I figured that must be some kind of ghost pissed off about having such a shitty resting place. Who roams around the cemetery at night? I guess I was thinking I could point him to where my uncle lives and start a haunting. Just for shits and giggles. It probably doesn't work that way, but I wasn't expecting to find something anyway. I finally made my way there and was about to go through the gate to the cemetery when I saw some humanoid gray colored thing in the nature trail next to the cemetery, and yes, I shit you not, my uncle thought it was a great idea to put a nature trail next to a cemetery. I'm a little nervous at this point because I can't think of anybody other than me crazy enough to go to this place at night. There isn't even a car around, so whoever the fuck that was, they must have walked there just like I did. I shouted out to this dude, thinking maybe it's just some stoner smoking or another ghost hunter. They didn't say anything, and all I could hear was a sickly sound of wheezing. I thought maybe they needed help and were out of breath from running away from something, so I took a deep breath and started walking down the trail. I whipped out my flashlight to light up whoever was down there, only to stop dead in my tracks. Whatever the fuck that thing was, it had no arms and no clothes on. Basically, I noped the fuck out of there and ran the whole way home, and I locked every door in my house. My mom was pretty pissed that I snuck out and figured that I was on a bad trip when I told her about the naked no-arm thing stalking the cemetery. I don't blame her, but I really wish she believed me, or at least humored me, so I could carry around one of the Rambo knives that she collects. I was still pretty shaken up. This freak of nature had to know where I live, because I don't really run that fast. Still, I rationalized with myself. I didn't see that fucker behind me, and I didn't hear that horrible wheezing sound, so I decided I shouldn't worry about nothing. Only a couple days later, I was sleeping regularly again, until I saw it once more. My front door was open so that my dog could go in and out as she pleased. Her name is Piggy, and she's an inside dog, but house trained, so she'll go outside when she needs to use the bathroom. Dogs always have a place that they like to shit, and her spot was smack dab in the middle of the field in front of my house. Piggy ran outside, and a minute or so later, I heard her barking. I was a little confused because she normally never barks, so I figured that there must have been a stray cat or something around. I got up to assess the situation, and that damn thing was standing in the middle of the fucking field, fixated on my dog. He had a toothy, shit-eating grin on his face, and the little teeth in his mouth looked as if they were about to rot out. He was completely hairless and gray all over, with tiny squinty eyes too. I started screaming, making any type of noise necessary to distract him from eating my beloved Piggy, who during all of this was frozen in her tracks. His eyes darted up to meet mine, and we had a staring contest for what seemed like hours, but I'm only sure it was only for a few minutes. He broke my gaze, and I shit you not, began to pee on my dog. It wasn't yellow or clear, but it was disgusting pea green that coated my dog's fur, viscous like snot. It had this horrid acidic smell similar to that stuff of sulfur. I had no clue what the fuck it was, but it was on my dog, and that couldn't have been a good thing. At this point, I grabbed a kitchen knife and I started running towards this fucker. He stopped pissing and wheezed away. I would have pursued him, but just thankfully he didn't eat my dog. Peeing on her wasn't the greatest alternative, but I put on some rubber gloves and grabbed some lilac doggy shampoo to hose her down. Piggy normally doesn't like baths, but I'm sure she was happy to get that shit off of her. I went to bed a few hours later, but not before locking all the doors again. I wasn't taking any more chances with this fuck. I didn't know what to do about him that night, so I decided to sleep on it. Now, normally Piggy sleeps with me, but that night, I never felt her climb up next to me. The one time I woke up, it seemed as if she was just staring off into the distance. My mom was crying, telling me that there was something wrong with her. The dog was wheezing, and I instantly remembered that no-armed motherfucker pissing on her the other day. I shook it from my memory pretty quick to tend to my dog. I remember she has a sad look in her eyes, and she wouldn't drink any water or even eat meat. I was scared shitless and sped to the vet, who referred me to the hospital, who had her stay overnight. Apparently, she had contracted doggy pneumonia in the middle of summer. After $1,100 in vet bills later, Piggy drove home with me the next day in a horrible thunderstorm. I pulled up to my driveway, and what do you know? That bastard was standing right in the middle of it, staring at me like a deer caught in headlights. I knew that this was my chance, no more fucking around. I floored my car right at him and saw his eyes widen to a fucking circle. Next thing I knew, he jumped up on my car, then off again, then full on sprinted off into the fucking woods. I missed him. The one shot I had to kill him. I fucking missed him. The past couple days, I haven't really slept. All I can think about is that fucking creature. I never heard of something like this before, and he doesn't seem as dumb as I thought he was. I know he's planning his next move. I'm scared shitless as to what this fuck could do to me or my family. I really don't know what to do. I got only 10 hours of sleep this whole week. I know I'm not going to be able to keep it up soon. I'm so scared to close my eyes. Scared that as soon as I do, he'll be back, but in my room, doing God knows what. Does anyone have any experience with a creature like this? I can't stay awake forever.
This creepypasta is called Arizona. For her birthday, I took my girl Katie to Arizona so we could stay with some friends of hers and spend a few weeks partying and getting crazy and stuff before heading back to school for the year. We drove up in my dad's car. It's a really old Ford make and it's pretty beat up. The road there was bumpy and long. Our relationship seemed as strong as on the road. We were really in love. That was the first time I realized that. I had never truly been in love before. We were about halfway there when we realized we were going to run out of gas long before the nearest petrol pump. Katie's head was out of the window, sunglasses on in the blistering heat outside. Nothing but the wild desert landscape to be seen in all directions. We became frantic. We hadn't seen another car on the road in almost an hour. What if we broke down here, in the middle of the desert, with no food or water, with no one out there to find us? I sped up slightly, driven by these fears. It was then that we came across a gas station, smack bang in the middle of nowhere, in dry, empty nowhere. It was an old, worn-down servo. Long, yellow grass blew in the breeze beneath it. Outside were two rusted gas pumps. At first, we didn't know it was occupied. It seemed so lifeless, but as we pulled up and saw the petrol stains in the dirt, we were convinced otherwise. Katie started refilling the car, and I went inside to pay, and grabbed something to eat on the road. When I first went to open the door, it jammed. This perturbed me, so I looked up at the sign to check, and was reassured that the store was open. According to the torn sign that hung in between the dull yellow curtains at the door window, I pushed harder and harder with effort, and I got into the shop. Inside, it was totally abandoned, and left to ruin. Complete aisles lay on the ground, and the fridges were smashed and glass coated the floor. Despite the brightness outside, the interior of the gas station was dark and bitterly cold. Then there came, from behind me, the quiet weeping like a child's. I felt my heart race. It was coming from the back room. I stepped over the smashed glass pieces and twisted metal remnants on the floor, over where the patches of grass had grown through. I ran my hand along the wall and felt the crisscross of ivy beneath my fingers. It was overgrown. There came the crying again, and now I was facing the back room door. It was directly in front of me. I pushed the door open and it creaked with rust in its joints. Inside, there lay several wooden steps into the basement. It was pitch black and the smell was horrific. The drip drop of water alerted me to the fact that the basement was flooded. The water was up to my knees. Again, there came the crying. and a small splash in the far corner of the basement. "Hello?" I called out. "Is anyone there?" I started approaching the corner. The smell was horrible, and the cold water eventually got to me. The sobbing was getting louder. In the corner, I swore I saw something move amongst the shadows. "Hello?" I called again. "What's wrong?" I finally reached the corner, still dark. I had to bend down to avoid the pipes, which leaked down my back and trickled down my spine. The figure in front of me was very small and black, hunched over, sobbing quietly, head in his hands. "Why are you down here?" I whispered. Then it stopped moving completely. It was totally still. All noise seemed to cease, but for the quiet dripping of a broken pipe somewhere behind me. I outstretched my arm to touch its tiny shoulder, but it then began to slowly turn in my direction, to look me eye to eye. As his face swiveled around to look into mine, I remember screaming and swinging my head up in recoil, cracking it on the pipes above. The face was white as a sheet, pale like a hideous, moving mask. The eyes and mouth were completely black holes, huge and widening even as I look at them. They were so huge, they almost consumed its entire face. As I desperately tried to escape, it splashed towards me at rapid speed, uncurling its long, thin fingers. It was wailing now, staring into me with its huge black eyes. As I scrabbled up the stairs with great difficulty, as I felt my legs begin to give way beneath me, it sprinted out of the water and up the stairs towards me. I slammed the door, flipped the lock, and tore out of the store, into the old Ford. Katie began to laugh at me when she saw me, jeans wet, trembling with sweat soaking my chest, but I grabbed her and screamed at her to drive. For about half an hour, I could barely tell her what happened in the store. She listened and gave me a look of sheer terror. When I finally gave in and told her everything, she pulled the car to the side of the road and began to cry herself. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "I saw something while you were gone. When you were in the store, I was just putting the pump back when I saw this little girl and the man. Her father, I guess." The father stared at me with blank eyes and hanging jaw. But the girl... Oh God, the girl. She was staring straight at me, grinning with this huge smile that stretched so far across her face. I couldn't see any hair on her, and her skin was so dark. Not dark like a color girl, but dark like a shadow. And her smile just shone through the window. I convinced myself it was a trick of the eye and looked away, and when I looked back, they were gone. Then a little while later, you came back out. It was dusk by now, and we had nowhere to stay. We had not traveled nearly as much as we hoped that day, and the nearest motel meant going back past the gas station, so we just drove up from the roadside where we were, into the clearing a little way up, where people camped sometimes. We have obviously come the night after a big party. There was broken glass everywhere. When we arrived, however, it was empty. After a while, I tried to reassure her that we were okay. I calmed her down, put my arms around her, and we started to kiss. I moved to get closer to her when she suddenly screamed like hell itself. "It's her! It's her!" she screeched, fumbling to start up the engine. I turned in time to witness a small black face, grinning literally ear to ear, with only darkness inside. It was crawling into the car through my open window, with its limbs splayed out like an insect. It had too many limbs, way too many long arms, the fingers filling my face like antennae. We sped off, back down onto the road. Back on the road, nothing seemed right. There were no stars. That was what I noticed first. I was just too shaken to think about it, but there were no clouds that could be blotting them out. There was just the vast night sky, devoid of all light. Then, a few minutes after we had been driving forward, still sweating and breathing heavy, we passed a gas station. My heart skipped a beat. The gas station was at least a half an hour away in the opposite direction. All the lights were on, and I saw the doors sliding open. As we shot past it, Katie was in such hysterics, she found it hard to keep driving. We stopped the car. In the middle of the desolate road, I decided we should switch seats so that I could drive. She shuffled across her seat to mine, and I opened the door to get out. As soon as I was outside, the foul stench of the basement overwhelmed me. I gagged, then vomited down the side of the car. It was then I noticed the runner, a pale white thing, sprinting towards us through the fog, its limbs practically a blur. I could make out no face. How long had it been following us, running after us in the night? I got into the driver's seat as quickly as possible, and we drove off again, not talking. Katie whimpered, and I silently prayed. Then we passed the gas station again. The door was open now. There were two figures standing at the door, waiting. As we forced ourselves on, we both became aware of a soft, barely audible weeping in the back seats. Neither of us dared to turn around. "Ignore it," I whispered. My trembling hands gripped the steering wheel. Katie was curled in the fetal position, holding her head in her hands. The wailing increased, becoming extremely loud, ear-piercing, and horrific. Finally, I ordered myself to end it, and looked behind me. For a split second, I thought it was a girl in a white dress looking back at me, but she was gone as soon as she appeared. I checked the seats carefully, and there was nothing. In my tiredness and fear, I had completely lost track of the road. I drove on, and all through the night, Katie whimpered. I touched her once, but she screamed. I never tried again after that. The noises from the back seat started up again. We passed the gas station twice more. The people at the door were closer and clearer every time. The finest slither of a red light had begun to settle on the horizon. It was still dark as hell, but at least I was able to see the road ahead of me now. Katie had been silent, face concealed under her hands for some time. I decided to check the time, so I turned on the radio. At first, there was only static, instead of time or anything at all. The digital clock simply appeared black. I fiddled with the dial, trying to change the station. In between the static, I found only one audible channel. It had a high-pitched buzz in the background. A man was muttering names and numbers under his breath. 29, Lucy. 30, Adam. 31, Katie. I switched back to the static. I knew which name was next. Her friends weren't home. Katie's friends lived way out in the country, with no one else around in a mile. The grass was climbing the walls outside. How long have they been out? As soon as we were inside, Katie started whimpering again. I realized that while she had been silent, she was biting her lip. Blood was trickling down her chin, and the skin around her mouth was torn and chewed through. She grabbed the newspaper and some masking tape off the table and began blocking out the windows. After the night's events, I don't know whether I will be insane to join her or stop her. I simply watched. She covered the windows, jammed the door, and turned the lights off. For some time, it could have been minutes or hours. We sat silent in the dark. I offered to turn the television on, and Katie said nothing, sitting blank and comatose. I turned the television on anyway. A grainy black and white image flickered to life before us. A white face with empty eyes and an impossible huge smile flashed up, the smile growing wider and wider the longer we stared into it. There came the sound of weeping, from the television or in the house. I couldn't tell. We turned off the TV. It's been 3 whole days now. I haven't seen Katie at all today. She spends her time in the closet, crying. I once tore the door open and screamed at her, and she screamed back, her face contorting into something grotesque and inhuman. I slammed it in her face. The phone rings often. A voice, my mother's, I believe, whispering under his breath. I can only catch snippets of what it says. Come back. You're always welcome to come back. Sometimes in the background, I hear quiet chuckling. I hang up without saying a thing usually. The bathroom is shining white. I hear the shower running, and will walk in to find nothing. Nothing at all. Then when I'm in the bathroom, I will hear the television flick back on. It always goes to the face. In the background there are muttering voices now. I've called the police twice, and all I get is the whispering woman's voice. I called Katie's friends too, just as fruitlessly. There are knocks at the door a lot now. Through the newspaper, on the other side of the window, I see their hands slam against the glass and slide down. They do this for hours on end sometimes. They press their eyes up to the glass, through the holes in the newspaper. At night, we hear screaming from the guest room. I boarded it up. Sometimes I find tiny pieces of glass on the ground. A leak sprang up about a day ago in my room downstairs. Black spots of mold had appeared on the walls. There is a smell throughout the house. seeping in from my room, the odor of decay. I pray. I pray hopelessly, and I swear to God, I wish that I had never gotten out of that car. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that creepypasta called Arizona. I never heard this creepypasta before, so it was a pleasant read. I actually quite enjoyed it a lot, so hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. I don't really have much else to say. I'm not going to bore you guys with the whole GamerSubs thing anymore because I'm not sponsored by GamerSubs. But hey, if you are from GamerSubs and you're watching this video, hey, hit me up. I am down to have a little sponsor because your boy is broke, and you know, some money my way would be helpful. Outside that, I have nothing else to say. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. Out of hundreds of creepypastas and hundreds of videos, it means a lot to me, so thank you. And if you enjoy, please leave a like, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. I post 3 times a week, and mostly daily YouTube shorts. It kind of depends. So yeah, if that does interest you, please subscribe. It does help me out. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers at the end of the year. Outside of that, just thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye everyone.